My name's Kip. I'm a filmmaker from San Francisco and I have a confession to make. I'm a recovering hypochondriac. Like so many of us, I have a family history of diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. My dad had his first heart bypass at 49, his second at age 50. My grandpa died young from diabetes complications, and both my other grandpa and grandma died of cancer. I was always paranoid that I would also get one of these diseases. Like any good hypochondriac, WebMD Symptoms Checker was essentially my browser's homepage. Even in my teens, I took Metamucil every day and a daily aspirin. I read all the latest self-diagnosis books. I ate every multivitamin I could get my hands on, and I was obsessed with bodily functions.
I'm sitting with Kip Anderson. I have a personal story when it comes to you, and I'm really excited to do this interview. I was on a plane coming back from overseas, and one of the shows on screen was your What the Health. I loved it because it was a show that you would have never known until maybe the very end that you might have been a vegetarian or a vegan. But you told a story that I think every consumer has to hear. And that's a big talk about our food source and the food chain. What was your motivation behind, or the number of shows that you've done? What's your motivation in your shows?
Really just to show the truth, things that I've learned that I feel have been hidden and I had to find out for myself from doing research, which is really simple research when you dig into it and you want to know the truth on Google and going as far as What the Health, studying medical journals and thousands of different medical journals and studies to find what the real truth is out there, to share it.
And the truth is, in a lot of your work, is the food chain. And you know, at the end of the day, I think people who are not vegetarian, they're not vegan, and they get their food on their plate, and they really have no sense of how it got there. And I hate to say that the work you do is like exposing, but it's exposing in a, I want to say, a polite way.
Yeah, exposing the truth. Yeah, right? Exposing the truth. You know, it's got to be done. The truth.
What is the truth? Let's talk about what that means. What does it look on film?
Well, the truth as far as for What the Health, I mean, it's really how diet is connected to disease. I mean, it's the biggest correlation between diet and disease, and people don't realize that. They think genetics is the biggest factor.
Right.
And it's not, or environment. And in reality, most all illnesses stem from what we eat.
Government and media almost exclusively blame lack of exercise and sugary foods as a cause of diabetes. But I wanted to talk with an actual expert on the role of diet and diabetes. I went to speak with premier physician, diabetes expert, and researcher, Dr. Neil Barnard. What role does sugar play in causing diabetes?
It drives me crazy. Diabetes is not and never was caused by eating a high carbohydrate diet, and it's not caused by eating sugar. The cause of diabetes is a diet that builds up the amount of fat into the blood. I'm talking about a typical meat-based, animal-based diet. You can look into the muscle cells of the human body and you find that they're building up tiny particles of fat that's causing insulin resistance. What that means is the sugar that is naturally from the foods that you're eating can't get into the cells where it belongs. It builds up in the blood, and that's diabetes.
Kip, you also talk about, I mean, it's, yes, eating the food and what comes inside, but you also talked about how it affects people in the process on the outside as well. I mean, the people who are living within a certain radius of these farms are suffering as what about that a bit.
Yeah, that's really important. What I feel is the story arc. The most important part, actually, of What the Health is really the story arc of starting about true health. Or health is about me, myself, and I. And then it goes beyond my community. And then it goes with COWSPIRACY. True health is all about mind, body, spirit, and the entire planet. So when your community's happy, the world's happy, you're healthy and happy. So, you know, this industry, just by living next to slaughterhouses or farms, factory farms, you're destroying these communities that live by there. They're getting illnesses, these weird, bizarre, neurological illnesses, and just super sad that shows them What the Health.
10 million pigs in North Carolina produce the waste equal to 100 million humans. This is the equivalent of the entire U.S. Eastern Seaboard flushing their toilets into North Carolina. But there is no waste treatment. The pigs' waste falls through slats in the floors of the sheds they are forced to live in. It is then pumped into giant waste pits, which leach into rivers and streams, and is pumped out unfiltered onto fields, further polluting the environment and neighboring health.
When you go back and you look at where these hog facilities are located, there's a disproportionate number of them that are located near communities of color, low-income communities. It is definitely a human rights issue.
My sister, she have asthma, and you know, her brother, he have asthma. He's 3, and we don't know what she might have. I have asthma, I have sinus, I have sarcoidosis, that's the bacteria, and I have a pacemaker, which is 6 sinus syndrome. But you know, mostly everybody in this neighborhood got asthma or either cancer. My neighbor there died from cancer probably just last year. My nephew down the street, he's got cancer. He's in terminal cancer, stage 4. He's not a smoker, not a drinker. And it's not in his lungs. It's in his lymph nodes.
And people don't understand why these rivers and lakes and streams are being closed down. I think that's part of what you try to talk about as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you have billions of animals with no sanitary system, I mean, we go to the bathroom in these restrooms and they go, you know, sanitized to a separate place. These animals are, you know, defecating, urinating all over the land. They go into rivers and streams. You get, along with that, the plants that they eat, the genetically modified soy and corn, all the pesticides and that, those go run off as well into the water, and then you just create these huge dead spots, and that goes into the film COWSPIRACY,
right,
where we show all that.
Talk a bit about our planet from the ocean's perspective. What do you see happening there?
Oceans are also in a state of emergency. People have no idea about the oceans, and it's really sad because that's the one thing is we can't see, so it's out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
But there's some estimates that we might see fishless oceans as early as 2054. To sum it up, there's no such thing as sustainable fishing. No. It's all about demand. There's no such thing as sustainable fishing, and we have a new film coming out.
Why is there nothing about sustainable fishing?
Because for 8 billion people, you have a demand of fish. Say it's around 1.5 million tons. No matter how you catch that, whether it's a string or whether it's by a net, we have that much animals coming out of the ocean.
Right.
So no matter how much you extract that, you can't replenish that.
No, you're not containing them. No.
And we have a new film coming out at the end of this year, next year, called COWSPIRACY. That's all on the oceans. That explains all that. And not only that, also too, health-wise, fish wasn't what it was 20, 30 years ago. It's full of mercury, dioxins, and we have a little thing about that in the What the Health too. So it's just not a safe source of protein or omega-3s.